Hello, welcome to Quackalope. Thank you for joining me. Today, I'm going to be bringing you a 10-minute or less on SolForge Fusion, which is going to be a brand new game from the creators of Magic the Gathering and Ascension Tactics. This game is going to take two varying decks of cards. Each one is going to be entirely unique and customized. They're going to mash them together or fuse them together and allow you to engage in a card combat game across 5 different lanes of battle. The object of the game is going to be to bring your opponent's health down to 0, and one of the most unique elements is going to be the way that the active cards you play start gaining experience and leveling up throughout the course of play. So, with that being said, let's swing into this 25 to 60 minute card game and tell you everything you need to know in 10 minutes or less. SolForge Fusion, from the designers Richard Garfield and Justin Gary, introduces the next evolution in card games, with algorithmically generated decks for incredible variability and a true innovation in lane-based combat-driven card games. The creator of Magic the Gathering joins forces with the creator of Ascension for something quite unlike what we've seen before. The SolForge's power is beginning to wane, and the ice encasing the world is starting to thaw. The factions are eager to claim the emerging land. Will you stand with Ultra, stewards of life, the Nikiram, an undead society divided by castes, the Construct army of the technologically advanced Alien? Each faction brings their own unique strength to the fight ahead. It'll be up to you to decide the fate of the land revealed by the dying of SolForge. A sequel to the popular game SolForge, from the designer duo Justin Gary and Richard Garfield, SolForge Fusion gives players control of a faction staking a claim on the land unearthed by the thawing ice. This is a hybrid card game that will feature a one-of-a-kind deck for every player. The algorithmic design means that no matter what faction a player picks, each outcome will be different, and players will have countless strategic possibilities to consider when dueling. Using 2 different faction decks, players will combine their creations to form a fusion deck. No 2 faction decks will ever be the same, so naturally, the fusion decks that are constructed every time will be different from the games that came before. The memorable Forgeborn characters from the original game have returned as well, this time taking center stage as powerful beings who reflect the escalating power that players control as a game progresses. SolForge Fusion takes 30 to 60 minutes for 2 to 4 players, but the most frequent player count will be 2, as opponents sit across the table and battle it out with their fusion deck. Players will use creatures, spells, and their influential Forgeborn characters in the contest for control of the land in the world of SolForge. Over the course of the game, players will alternate turns, playing and leveling creatures and spells in order to defeat their opponent. When a player's health is reduced to 0, they are vanquished. Play passes through a priority system that will shift between the players as the game progresses and as actions are resolved. Once both players have finished playing cards, leveling up cards, and activating their abilities of their creatures and Forgeborn, then the combat phase will occur. Combat is resolved across the different lanes, with front row creatures instigating a conflict. Creatures are the fodder in this fight, with these cards soaking up whatever damage is dealt and blocking the damage from reaching the player. If there are no creatures to take damage being dealt, then the players themselves will be hit. 2 refresh phases maintain the flow of SolForge Fusion as players make it through turns. Each end-of-turn beings exhausted creatures back into a readied state, back row creatures are moved up to the front row, new hands are drawn, and control of the forge passes between players. When a player has no remaining draw pile cards left, their Forgeborn is ready to level up. The game ends with either a typical defeat when one player loses all of their health, or a sudden death mode that is activated. Not many card games can claim to have over 15,000 cards in the base set, and the algorithmic generation means that this is a game that could sustain your interest for years, given the variable state of play and the mind-boggling scope of possible permutations. SolForge Fusion is an innovative step in a new direction for card games, and it's got the steady hand of 2 veteran designers guiding it. It's a game that will be heavily supported from the very onset, with tournaments and organized play programs, as well as an online database that will allow players to scan their decks and compete via the wonders of the World Wide Web. It represents such a novel take on the lane-based combat system in games, and the way that creatures and cards can be leveled up means that even the beginning state of a player's hand will change over the course of the game. If you don't like evolving strategy that will change from game to game, then this might be something difficult for you to wrap your head around. You'll be able to understand the rules, the mechanics of SolForge Fusion, and you can even grasp a foundational strategy of how cards and actions might work together, but the algorithmic state of the game means that your strategies cannot stay stagnant. You have to adapt with the game, otherwise you won't be ready when some new combinations thrust upon you by your opponent. If you prefer games that allow you to focus on one or two strategies and master them in order to beat a game, then the organic nature of SolForge Fusion might be frustrating for you. For all of the reasons why someone might not like SolForge Fusion, others will certainly be intrigued by it. Fans of Magic the Gathering and Ascension will be able to sniff out the influences that their respective designers have brought to this new puzzle of a card game. It's such a fascinating proposition. Take something that is so familiar to thousands of gamers out there and turn it on its head. Bring previously unknown depths of strategy to card games by making certain that no two decks will ever be the same. Gone are the powerful deck combinations that will be used by everyone who's in the know. Now players will need to adjust. They'll need to recalculate, dial in their strategy, improvise on the fly. The winner of SolForge Fusion will be the one who has grasped what their deck is offering and then optimized how to bring those creatures, spells, and Forgeborn out onto the battlefield. This is dynamic board game encryption that players will have to work to unlock, but it will be so exciting when you break the code.